Oh dear. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Three Coaches, One Topic. And today I'm joined by Maxine and Liz, who have been with me since the beginning of my coaching journey and who I love and adore. But today's topic was actually not planned. There was another topic we were going to discuss, and then I saw something on social media and sent them a message. Just like, can we talk about this? And they kindly put up with my suggestion. So before we get started, I'm going to throw you over to Maxine and invite you to share a little bit about yourself, Maxine, and where you're dialing in from.
Oh, thank you, Donna. Well, first of all, of course, we jumped on board and took Donna's idea because we were all equally interested in it. So just to kind of level that out. So I'm Maxine. I call myself a best life advocate, life coach, success coach, and I also do NLP. So I'm a practitioner there. I'm dialing in from sunny Florida, although it's torrential rain. So, there's a difference, very, very tropical. And I've known Donna for quite a while. We've been through a lot of the coaching experiences together and with Liz as well. So this is a wonderful opportunity to all talk together about coaching, which we absolutely love. And I'm very happy to be here. Thank you, Donna.
Oh, thank you so much. And, I really do appreciate your input, and I'm loving the stuff that you're putting out there as well, by the way.
Thank you.
I'm really enjoying that. Over to you, Liz.
Thank you, Donna. And I, too, am just so happy to be here with you ladies. You are both brilliant, and I just enjoy our conversations. And I'm so happy to have known you and been with you through our journeys together. I'm Liz. I am coming to you from not so sunny Vermont, but it's still beautiful, very green. And I call myself a growth coach because I work with folks who are struggling to get over that hump and into their growth. And so I do that with small business and individuals. But these two and our conversation and our topic today is very personal to me because I have lots of folks, myself included, but family members who I'm working to try and get through the blame game and into the taking the personal responsibility. So I'm very excited for our conversation.
Oh, thank you. And I have to apologize. I didn't put your full title on, so forgive me for that. That's me planning ahead of time.
I'll just take chief cook and bottle washer. Queen, you can call me Queen. That's fine. Your Majesty. Since I'm the only one without the accent today.
Oh yeah, the non-Brit. Okay,
don't worry. We're getting up on you. We'll translate when you need it, Liz.
Yeah, exactly. Don't worry, there will be subtitles. So I'm Donna Burfield. I'm the founder of Joy and Purpose Coaching, and I'm a parent coach, which I absolutely love and adore. And I also run a coaching community. And again, on the finishing touches, I'm getting ever so close to CSE International Coaches Community, and just got all the core coaches in place and filling up the platform. So it's really, really exciting. So right, I'm too eager to get onto this topic. So today's topic is stop blaming others and start mastering. Sorry.
It's the accent.
It's the accent. It's both of them.
I need to stand in. Okay, stop blaming others and start mastering self-discipline, the path to personal accountability. Okay, so I need to give you a tiny bit of a backstory. As I said, we had discussed about doing another topic. Can't remember what that was now. But anyway, and I saw on social media by somebody who I respect highly, and he put in a post along the lines of, wouldn't it be great if social media stopped you from posting from 6 p.m. in the evening? And so I was quite curious about people's responses to this, because my automatic response was, why would you need like Instagram or what have you to tell you to stop? And I was knocked sideways. There was hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people saying that would be brilliant, which is why we're going to have this topic. So, ladies, I'm going to throw it over to you. When you got my little rant going, what the hell? We need to discuss this. What came up for you?
I admit I was equally baffled, because why would I need an institution, organization, whatever it was, to tell me to stop doing something? Because social media, I mean, it just seemed so out of place. But also it was, if I want to start posting at whatever time it is, I'll stop posting. I have the wherewithal and the control and the power to pick my phone up and put it back down. It does not run my life. So yeah, and then it occurred to me that blame game is kind of existing everywhere, and it's a very easy way to sidestep the guilt and shame that comes with some of the behaviors that we have. So I could see why some people would want to put the responsibility elsewhere, because they didn't want to admit they've got a problem. That was where my head straight away went.
Agreed. Agreed. These types of things make my head explode. Because
Yeah.
you're exactly right. I mean, how much do we give over to the powers that are outside of ourselves? And, from everything from turning social media off because I'm not disciplined enough to be able to curb myself, to, here in the States, there was this whole push on like school lunches, right? And the outcome was the idea of it was to create healthy options and to stop allowing the sugars and things like that, when they're going to get it anyway, right? And the outcome actually wasn't as good. So now you're forcing me to do it to 6 o'clock. Well, I'm still working. So what are you telling me? I should do it while I'm at work? I think my boss would have a problem with that.
Probably.
But it's the more we give away and the less responsibility we take for ourselves, there's no growth. There's no, I don't know. I don't even know how to put my head around this. It just makes my head explode when we're hitting this point.
Right. And don't you think as well, when you deny somebody something, they crave it even more? So the kind of younger, I'm going to say less mature crowd, you tell a child, like the sugar thing that you talked about, right? You can't have that. They're going to get it.
Yeah, in the closet, in their, they're going to eat it whenever they're not around. It's the same thing with social media. They're going to find a way around it.
Exactly. So
and it consumes them.
Yes, self-control. So,
but at the end of the day, okay, let's assume we're talking to adults here, okay, and are you telling me, because a lot of the responses were in favor of like Instagram, Threads, Twitter, Facebook, putting a curfew, I suppose, that and a lot of these people that responded turn around and says that would actually help me. Right. This is taking away your freedom of choice. If you find, and that's what I took away from that conversation, if you are finding that you're needing somebody else to put rules in place to restrict your viewing, to stop you from scrolling mindlessly, and before you know it, you've spent 3 hours watching, I don't know, TikTok, I don't have, but anyway, shouldn't that send alarm bells to you that this is something that's in your control? And I do appreciate that when they're starting to talk about addiction now, we're not just talking about alcohol and drugs and all the rest of it. Being on your phone and being on social media is a form of this. However, this is where we still need to recognize those signs and stop blaming other people. Those that can control their urges and have that self-discipline are entitled to enjoy what social media has to offer.
Yeah, and it's social media kind of promotes itself as being an open platform, right? An open forum for people to share whatever, depending on whatever they want to participate in on whatever platform, right? The whole point of it is that freedom, isn't it? That freedom. So maybe it's the word discipline that has a negative connotation, because I looked it up and I want to share it because there's two things I saw and I just want to share. I'm going to read it because I instantly saw why there's pushback on discipline, right? So, definition: the practice of training people to obey rules or a code of behavior using punishment to correct disobedience. Yeah. That's discipline. But no, there's another version of discipline, right? You always find a couple of definitions, so I make sure I went either side of the spectrum. And this is the one I think we're looking at and considering. The quality of being able to behave and work in a controlled way, which involves obeying rules or standards, but it's not set around. You're setting your own. The ability really to focus on that and set your own standards, your own parameters within which you wish to be disciplined. So it takes out that punishment form of it, because I think many people have tied discipline to some form of punishment. So I just want to kind of throw that out there, because I'd love to hear what you think. Is the cutoff at 6 o'clock a punishment then? Is that what people need to be punished to stop doing something?
That's a good thought. On the other side of that, I think, is that people don't realize they're giving away their peace and their joy and their happiness to something else, something outside of themselves. And the discipline, you're right, it sounds it sounds awful, right? Nobody wants to be disciplined. So perhaps it's the semantics that scare people away from it. But if you are constantly giving over that power of your own to make the choice, and choice is everything, right? In the end, what are you going to have, right? You're just going to be a slave to what whoever that power is tells you what you can and can't do, and how to feel and how to think. And
yeah.
So.
Again, I agree with both of you, and I think we put too much emphasis on certain words, and it's our definition of that. So self-discipline, to me, is about determination, setting boundaries, prioritizing, acknowledgement of what's important. Discipline, like when I talk about children, I don't like the word disciplining, because what's the consequences of those actions am I looking for?
Yeah.
So, it's about, instead of saying, I don't like that word and therefore I'm going to rebel, well, come up with a word that suits you, If discipline itself, a lot of our words in our languages have come back from years and years and years and years ago. So, be proactive and productive with regards to coming up with a new definition, and start acting on that. you know. So again, with anything, people will rebel if you will turn around and say you can't do something. If somebody says you can't eat that, look at how many people that go to the doctors. It could be to do with diabetes, heart conditions, what have you, and the doctors give them a dietary plan and say you can't eat this, stay away from that. What are they going to crave?
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Yeah. You tell somebody, I mean, that's the rebellious side of it. And it's interesting. Why do we do that? Being denied something, right? We instantly kind of, now it's forethought, right? It's up in our conscious. And I think sometimes that pushback, just to cycle in real quick, that word discipline, I don't think it's a conscious thought that people think that it's negative. They feel that it's negative because it's probably been negative in the past. But I loved what you brought out about the healthy boundaries, right? Which was really the list of things that you came up, setting your own healthy boundaries. I don't know whether people realize they have the power to do that, or that they, I don't know, feel they can identify the benefits from doing that. It seems to have been lost somewhere, and I don't know why. But establishing those healthy boundaries in every dynamic of where we live and how we exist is incredibly important, but we seem to have lost that in a general consensus of way. We want to, I don't know, be freer than that, more spontaneity. But
No, I don't think we've lost it. I think we apply it when it suits us.
Maybe that's what it is. I can see that.
But I think it's fear too. And I say that because not having the discipline, right? So if we're talking about the social media thing, back to that, if you cut me off at 6 o'clock, then I won't be on it after 6 o'clock. If you don't cut me off and I set myself a boundary, I'm not going to pick up my phone or to scroll social media on the computer or whatever after 6 o'clock. And then I forget and I'm on at 7 o'clock, then I failed, right? So with that fear, I think comes shame. And that shame is such an insidious emotion that we feel, and it makes me feel less than. It like, well, God, I couldn't even do that. And so that then triggers something else, It's like a vicious, it's a vicious cycle. And then I feel bad about myself. And so I'm going to then do something I wouldn't normally want to do because what the heck, I've already screwed up today anyway. I may as well eat that whole box of chocolates that I knew I didn't want to eat. But it then spirals down. Whereas if I say to you, Donna, cut me off at 6 o'clock, it doesn't give me that option. But in the same token, we're giving away all of our personal power, and we're putting our ability to live the life that we want to live, or we think we want to live, and our happiness and our inner joy off to something else, and we don't even know it.
Yeah,
Right.
but you make an important point, and also there's many people who have heard about James Clear with Atomic Habits.
Yep.
Okay, so it is about setting up those boundaries and deleting, delegating, putting new habits in place, and so forth. So again, let's look at parents when they have young children. As an ex-teacher, especially for preschool, at that point, I had so many parents complaining that they couldn't get their children off their iPads or watching cartoons before going to school. Okay, in my brain, very logical. This is a habit that you have set up, whether it was to give you time so you can get ready. So it's about, you got to look at situations and going, what am I setting myself up for here? Now, I'm not the perfect parent, But my kids were never, ever allowed to watch TV, turn on their computers. Well, I'm that old. There wasn't really that age, but yeah. But do you know what I mean? They weren't allowed to watch TV before going to school.
Yeah,
And it was after homework.
But
Right,
that's
focused
hard.
on something else. It is hard, and maybe as well as parents, to use Donna's example, that's our role to actually guide them to better behavior and focusing where they need to be focused, because they don't really have the ability to do that as younger children, and that does set I think a mechanism up as we grow older to be a little bit more self-disciplined as we get, we go through life. We figure out, well, there's benefits from actually working this way and being more focused and putting my own rules in place, right? I'm going to get up in the morning and I'm not going to put my TV on, and I'm structure. It's structure. That's what we're talking about. That builds discipline.
Yeah, it does. And people forget that if somebody else has done it, then they can do it too. It's not impossible, right? It's certainly within the realm of possibility, but it's hard and it requires thought and it requires work on certainly, in the parenting world. Like, I think that was the hardest thing for me when I had my first child was I realized like my life is not my own anymore. I can't just only think about myself. I now have to think about her. And as you have more, it becomes less and less of yours. But then you're in a new role. And I think it comes down to the fact that we're not modeled this anymore. We're not taught this anymore. And I don't even know if in the beginning of time they were purposely taught that. It just happened because that's what you needed to be. And now we have things that are so much easier. And, no longer do we, you can't just allow your kids to go off and do their thing outside of the home, or, um, you don't have the grandparents and the great grandparents and the aunts and uncles living there, so that if it's just you and you need that 20 minutes to get ready, you shove your phone in the kid's face and say, here, watch this. And then that just becomes, to your point, Donna, that habit that we have created. And now to roll back a habit, it's super difficult.
Yeah.
It's not impossible. You just have to make it a point to do it.
And it's that instant gratification.
100%.
See, a lot of us, it's about entertain me. I want it. I want it. And again, it is all about, and I personally like the word self-discipline. For me, it empowers me. It's just like, okay, I'm finding this difficult. What stuff can I put in place to enable me to get the best out of this situation? And when you are challenged, that is where, in those situations, you will see your growth. So relying on social media or relying on quick and easy steps do not serve you in the long run.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Delayed gratification. I totally agree. Plus, we've built an environment where access is so easy and prevalent and everywhere. I mean, look at if you ask a family now, how many screens do you have in your house? You probably find each child has a TV in their own bedroom, or there's more than one TV in the house, and they have iPads, and they may have a little cell phone. They have multiple devices that are everywhere. So controlling or limiting access to those, we've again given the power away, because there's so many touch points. And when the environment is always going to rule, if you're going to build an environment where there's all these touch points, the temptation is so great. I grew up in a house with one TV. There was no putting that on unless there was allowed to have that TV on. Yeah, I'm
Was it a dial tone and you had to move the aerial?
I was the remote. Get up and turn the channel. And there were 3. Okay, in UK, there were 3.
Yeah.
So, the access was, and it was a family thing. You'd sit down and all watch the TV together. It wasn't, the kid goes off and watches a small program before they fall asleep. What a horrible habit. That's my personal opinion. But the access, the environment that we have now and we've bought into makes it so much more difficult for discipline to be imposed, to put the structure in place. It's much harder.
I don't think it's much harder. It's what you allow at the beginning. So I think it's about that awareness, and having those discussions, and these are discussions that need to start in school because, they grow up and have children and become parents and so forth, with regards to how can you monitor your screen time? How can you invest in your family time, quiet time? Your brain needs time to be creative and to be quiet and to do all those things. So, I think a lot of people don't give our children or teenagers that credit. It's just a case of us having those conversations with them.
Yes, and I agree with you. I also want to bring in the conversation about, thinking about where we want to be in our lives and the outcomes that we'd like to have for ourselves. And what does it mean to have, what happens if you take personal accountability? Like, where are you going with that? Our kids today, even adults today, don't necessarily think about what they want 5 years from now, 3 years from now, 1 year from now. And if they did, they would ask themselves the question, is this activity, is this decision, is this thought that I'm about to think taking me one step closer to what I really want? Because if they did, they would probably not spend hours and hours and hours looking at cat videos and people doing stupid stuff on the, that hurts themselves on the internet, right? Because what exactly is that cat video doing to take you one step closer to the life that you choose to have? And we don't think about outcomes. We're not taught that, at least here, we're not taught that in school. And we're not taught any of this, that it's, if you fail in a classroom, they blame the teacher. Really? Why don't they blame the student? Why don't they blame where is it? Oh, because the student didn't want to sit and study their stuff. So we're not
But
experimenting
again, it's
anymore.
a village. It's a village, Liz.
100%, 100%.
Too many times teachers and schools are blamed, and parents who are not stepping up and taking responsibility and accountability for bringing this child into the world. And again, a lot of the times the teachers are blaming the parents for things that, they have more influence. So it's a case of how can we work together? And it's about us having those discussions. And it's about having those positive role models.
Sure.
Around
it's also
us.
about priority, right? I
Yeah.
can't tell you how many low income, and I'm not shaming or blaming here, but in the US, there are plenty of low income households who are, who have government assistance for their housing, who have nicer iPhones than a lot of people, who have the top of the line 79 million inch televisions and the best cable thing, but they can't afford the roof that's over their head. Like, where's our priority?
There's also a lot of low income families who understand the importance of communities and supporting each other
100%.
as well. So again, it's a balance. I think it's more prevalent to the person and their outcomes.
And I don't mean to put it on low income only, because there's plenty of high net worth individuals and everyone in between that has the same problem, but it's about the priority.
So this is a great conversation. I do want to just quick tap back into the original event that brought us to this discussion. So Donna, you saw the comments were they all adult comments?
Yeah.
Really? That's fascinating, isn't it? To me.
Yeah, it was quite interesting because you could see their occupation or, you know, what have you. And you know, it came across that a lot of these people are quite educated. There again, you can't take anything for face value on social media.
No.
And I was just, as I said, I was just stunned that, you know, people blamed especially Instagram. They blamed and TikTok for sapping their energy and taking away their time. And, you know, as soon as you start blaming other people that you're in control of, and to turn the TV off or turn the phone off or put something down, I think this is where you really got to look at yourself. So this is where I would love to know. So what does self-awareness, or how does self-awareness play into fostering self-discipline and personal accountability?
I think you just nailed it on the head when you said the folks that were commenting were saying they realized, which I think is the key word, that social media was zapping their energy and was, you know, causing problems in their life. That's awareness. When you see what the result is, then you need to have the wherewithal to say, so what am I going to do about it?
Right. And as well, people are, so back to that blame thing, and this is a thought, and I just want to throw it in there because I think it's relevant time. We are seeing posted in all the media, all the different platforms, studies that show that these algorithms and these platforms are deliberately addictive to get us to spend more time there. So we are a little bit compelled or a little bit drawn to go, oh, okay, so it's not just my fault. I'm now subjected to this, and there's my reason I can't control this. Now, it's sidestepping accountability, but it's also sidestepping the shame and the guilt that comes with the fact that I'm not strong enough to beat this platform that I feel compelled to watch and can't put the phone down once I'm 15 minutes in. Because I think we've all caught ourselves. I'm going to talk about me. I've caught myself doing it, wasting a full 30 minutes going, oh my God, I didn't even have that 30 minutes. What the hell am I thinking? I wasn't thinking.
Been there.
That's the point. Wasn't thinking, right? But we're being told by social media that it is the platform's fault. So what are we going to do? Now we have an out. I'm going to jump on that. Yeah, I think that they need to shut it down at 6 o'clock. It's insidious, isn't it?
But
well,
I think it's
plenty
about,
of.
sorry, go ahead.
It's exciting to talk about this.
Go ahead, Liz, please.
I was just going to say that we have, so if you know that about yourself, then pick this up and put the timer on it. And when the ding goes off, you get up and walk away. Yep. I used to have a router at my house for internet that it was the best thing ever developed. And of course, some company bought it and took it off the market. But it allowed me to set my Wi-Fi so that it turned off at certain times because I knew my kids weren't able to do it. So, you know, at 10 o'clock at night, there was no more Wi-Fi. It was basically a paperweight that they had in their hand. And I could do it different days. It was awesome. So there is technology out there. If you know that you are not able to help yourself, then you can employ other means.
Yes.
To ensure
Absolutely.
that you're able to help yourself.
Right.
And that's okay. It's to your point about the addiction. I think we're addicted to a lot of stuff, good, bad, and indifferent, but the addiction focuses on the negative. How about the drug user? How about people that are addicted to foods they're not supposed to eat, right? You can employ friends. You can employ, don't buy it. Don't go in those places. Change up your friend group and don't hang out with the people you used to because they're triggers. So you need to put something in place.
Yeah.
And
I think there's two things that you've mentioned here. And one of the things is, I think we are fortunate to come from an era that we didn't grow up being part of our everyday life and culture.
Good point.
So those skills, and for us to turn around and go, and which I did, I don't get it. I dug deeper and I do get it. However, my initial reaction was, what? If so, for me to fathom, how can you blame others, and how can you not see that you have the power? You are in control. This is all up to you. This is what you're accepting, and this is what you're allowing. So yes, however, also I can see this being an escapism. For us to escape was going on our bikes, going to the library, reading books, things like that, getting together with our friends. Nowadays, this is their escapism.
It is. It is. And it's
just
numbing.
more unhealthy.
Yeah, it's a distraction. It's a numbing effect. It's a way of not having to cope with the immediate, right? Have to sit with your thoughts, sit with the present environment that you have, whatever it is, whatever it's serving. It's serving something when anybody sits down on a social media. There was an unconscious or a conscious intent when they sit down, and then it evolves into something else.
That's a good point, Maxine.
Yeah.
But I also want to throw in here that what's happening, certainly I can say this about my girls, right? I have girls and boys. My girls spent the time on social media comparing their insides to to the outsides of others, what they're showing out there. And it's how do they measure up? So they're constantly reinforcing for themselves that I don't measure up, but that in the same token, they want to keep comparing themselves because they think they're trying to get there. And it is an escapism, but it's also, I don't know what the word is for that, but it's to try and see where they fit, and are they accepted? Acceptism? I don't know. But
yeah, conforming maybe.
Right, so you make it. I'm going to share a story which seems off track, but it does make sense. So when my daughter was younger, I don't like horror films. I don't like being made. Oh, and my daughter went over for a sleepover. She came back and she was petrified. She was having nightmares. So she was only young, about 7 or 8. And so we had a talk, and she told me that they watched The Ring.
Oh.
And I was like, holy crap, even I wouldn't watch that. So she was petrified. Now, how do I help her? So I took a deep breath and I said, you know what? I'm going to show you. Let's search and I will show you how they make horror films. It's not real. This is an actor. So I did a bit of research, looked at who the actress was and saw her in nice clothes and friendly, and then, how they do this. So this helped put things into perspective for Laura.
Perfect.
So again, with social media, where, it is addictive, and that self-comparison, which is a terrible rabbit hole to go down. It's full of uglies. And again, look at how our social media posts made. Look at all those influencers. How many shots did they take? I was going to say something rude. Forget where I am.
Quarter is good.
Really Freudian slip. What favors do they ask for? I mean, there's so much that goes on behind the scenes for that one shot or that one reel.
Yeah.
Most people don't do that kind of research.
No, they don't.
I love that there used to be a television commercial. I don't know, Maxine, if you remember this, here in the States, that, and I don't even remember what it's for, but there was a woman walking on the street, I guess, of New York or a big city like that, and she was meeting a blind date. And the man showed up and he was like schlumpy and hadn't washed his hair, long, stringy, and he was overweight, and he was wearing this kind of like just like a t-shirt that you wouldn't leave the house in. Maybe you'd sleep in, right? And it was kind of dirty. And he said, because they met on the internet, and he said, but she said, well, um, something about, but you don't look like your profile. And he said, but I'm a French model. And he had put himself out there as a French model, and she believed him. And so when you're looking at this, it's like that's what the internet does. People take, because it's on the internet and
Yeah.
it's in letters and numbers and video and whatever, people take it for the gospel truth. They don't question further than that.
It's distorted, isn't it? We've distorted life because, I mean, so to share a story in mine, and it adds to what you're saying. I had what was he called? We did public affairs, social sciences and public affairs. And professor, little geeky, because they always are. He always said, tweed jacket, the whole thing, it was perfect fit. He always said that in the news and in the media, and this is years ago, I mean, I'm talking 30 years ago, probably a little longer. You only get to see what the cameraman is showing you. And his example was, there may be a crowd of protesters on the streets for a reason, but the cameraman may zoom into one woman sitting on the edge of the pavement sobbing. And you are now going to get the impression that that's how everybody feels is on the streets protesting. But they're focused on one person. Now, the message that you're getting is that microcosm, that focus where the camera showed you. So this, all social media does this. And there's a word that we don't use anymore, but I really do think this holds true. Is propaganda. We are fed a lot of things, and we feed other people a finite snapshot of what we wish to portray and the message that we want them to receive. And it's seldom reality. It's what we want them to buy into. And that's because we have something we need of the person watching it. That's awful. That is not being honest. That's not being authentic. Big word that everybody seems to throw around a lot these days. But it's not being warts and all, which is what I call it. If I'm not, this hair is warts and all. I'm sorry, I've done nothing with it. I just, this is it. I don't care anymore because I really don't want to buy into the superficial standard.
But your focus is other places. And
yes,
I think what I'm hearing, and in thinking about this in terms of our topic, people need to start questioning, and they need to start questioning in relation to themselves and where they want to go. It's interesting because I find that people, as we used to say, are tuned into the station WIIFM, what's in it for me, but yet they are constantly focused outward. And there's nothing wrong with being focused on you and your life and where it's going. And of course, society may say that that's too, if it goes too extreme, then there needs to be some tempered action. But people need to worry about that. Nobody, in the States, we may not have Social Security, and when people turn 70, 65, whatever that is. They've been saying that forever. So take your responsibility and start looking at where you want your life to go. What makes you happy? How are you going to get it? Stop putting it out there. And the way to get that is to start questioning. And how does this fit with me? And is this real? And what am I looking at? And what am I getting out of this? And we just blindly go through life and not understand how our brains work and how our thinking process works. And certainly seen it here in the US with the political environment, which I don't want to get into because it's so polarizing, but that's the problem. if you have a different feeling than I do, then somehow you're wrong, or that makes me wrong. Instead of like, this is my life. What I choose to do and where I want to go doesn't really have an effect on you unless you choose it to have an effect on you.
And I don't need to impose it on you either.
100%.
It's mine.
Right.
Share what you wish, right? Be authentic with it. Share what you wish. And, you know, it's not a competition, right and wrong. All of this debate that goes, it's awful. I'm dreading next year, 2024. Let's leave it there.
Yeah.
But
I won't be watching.
don't, please don't. And
we have no control over it anyway. So
we really don't. But I will be choosing very carefully how I participate, if at all, in watching anything about it.
Exactly what we're talking about here. You'll be
Right.
choosing very carefully for what works for you and what's important to you. People need to take that attitude into the everyday thing. Social media, you know, the time that they spend, the jobs that they do, how they show up in the world, the lessons that they're teaching their children, you know, where do you want to be in 6 months or 5 years? Because if we're not focused forward, there's a reason that your car windshield is bigger than the rear view mirror, right? You can't constantly be looking back. You have to be looking forward.
Yeah.
So, and looking is just not enough. You actually have to take action to get there.
And that's the hardest part, isn't it? Moving to action, right?
Yeah.
And self-awareness, totally, right? But then you got to do something about it.
It's not only self-awareness, it's about thinking about your intentions.
Yes.
So,
yes,
you know, whatever you're doing, just checking in with yourself. Why am I doing this? It's okay. Look, there's times that I've been sat behind this computer with work for 14 to 16 hours, and I will get off and I'll grab a glass of wine, and I think, I just want to watch some crap TV.
But it's your choice.
Yeah,
that's where the empowerment is.
Exactly. So I will watch something, and I'm not putting MasterChef in crap TV zone, but what it is that I'm not having to think. Yes. I'm being entertained. If I want to be entertained, then I look at Discovery Channel or History Channel or things like that. So again, what's my intention?
Mm-hmm.
Good point.
Yeah. And if I'm at a dentist or a doctor's surgery and I know I'm waiting to be called to go in, I will click on Instagram. I will have a scroll, because it really does make time go really fast. And before you know it, I'm in the doctor's surgery. So
it is. It's interesting.
No, I do love that really check your intentions, because if you've got 15 minutes and there really is, you're trapped there, right? I mean, you may not want to be thinking about the actual appointment itself. It's okay to kind of just divert your attention to something else that is easy on the brain. And our brains do actually need a rest. Mm-hmm. I think it's very important what Liz said earlier. It's important to understand how our brains work. And what's very difficult for, the mind and the brain. The brain is that central processing unit, and it's built in a way that we really can't have much control over, but our thoughts and our mind and how we use it, we can. So if you understand the mechanism of the brain, you can actually plan for it to not go into some of this ruminating kind of stuff, or this numbing stuff, these habitual things that the brain kind of entices us to do, because its main job, its primary job, is to keep us safe. And that sometimes tells us, stop what you're doing, just detach from everything, because it's uncomfortable right now. And we do it, but then we'll bring yourself back. Keep your intention, understand what it is, and if you can then remind yourself of what that intention was, you're going to trigger your brain to stop. Okay, that's enough. I've been called back to the doctor's office. If you understand a lot of all of those mechanisms, how they work, it makes it easier to have the self-control, the discipline to disrupt what you might be doing, right? Interfere with something you might have slipped into unintentionally. I think that for me has been very important to figure out how my brain works. It's a little crazy sometimes. So it's very noisy. Sometimes I do want to just switch it off. And there's things I do to do that. It's not social media, but I've found things that I do that help me get to know how you work, get to know how your brain works, get to know your behaviors, things that will lead you into things that are not particularly healthy, and accommodate for that, and put some, I don't want to call it tripwires, but put some things in place, just disruptors that will catch you. But that's some.
You make an interesting point. It is a case of, if you are in that space and you do know that you need to detach, to escape, and, depending where we are in our lives situations, we need to escape reality sometimes. And if that is your go-to, again, it's looking about how long do you allow yourself to watch it for? When does there come to a point where you then get empowered of, okay, what can I take control of? What steps can I put in place to move me forward? How can I use this to serve me?
Yes.
To make it better.
Yeah. Disruptor, right? Okay, I'm going to allow myself to do this, but like Liz back to put a timer on. Or your example, Donna, 15 minutes waiting for your doctor's appointment, call you back, right? There's a limit there. You're conscious, that's control. That's you managing yourself in a way that you're not going to go down a rabbit hole, and it's quite acceptable, and it's okay because I need this break.
But how do you know if you I guess the question is, how do you know that you need awareness? And my answer to that would be, if you stop in the moment and you look around you, if you don't have everything exactly the way you would love it to be, and you can't say that you're so happy and life is going so well, then you need to have awareness, because what you're experiencing today is the manifestation of thoughts and actions and decisions that you've made yesterday and every other day before that. So that's the only way you're going to get out of that. And if you constantly give over the responsibility to somebody else, I think it was Jim Rohn that was talking about planning and said, if you don't have a plan for yourself, you're going to fall into somebody else's. And guess what they have planned for you? Not much. So, it's about that. Like, that's where the responsibility starts. Stop in the moment and look around you.
Yeah.
Start your awareness. That's how you're going to get to personal accountability, because then you're going to realize how empowering having your personal choice is.
And that's really, at the end of the day, what it is keeping your options, your choices broader, expanding them all the while. And I say this to my clients all the while. If you're going to make a decision, whatever the decision is, always consider, does this reduce my choices in life, or does this expand them? Does it keep them the same? Right. And then it really forces them like, oh yeah, if I do that, then it's going to limit me down here. And it does tend to get them away from that instant gratification thing as well, right? Or just that where I need this right now, but I know that I'm going to pay for it later, right? I'm going to eat this huge piece of sugary cake because I'm craving it, but I'm going to feel like poop in an hour, and I'm going to get that sugar crash, and I'm going to feel awful.
But that's in an hour.
Well, whatever.
I'll deal with that then.
Pretty quick for me.
Give me the cake now.
Right, but it's, understand, right? I can do this. That's my choice. I have the control over that. But what's the payback? What choices am I going to have? I'm making the choice to do this, but now my choice later is less because I'm going to feel like horrible, and I'm not going to feel like I'm going to be doing what I would prefer to be doing this evening because I'm going to feel.
But that comes with the grace of life and experience and time. And I think we've got to be quite conscious that, when you're in your childhood, late teens, early 20s, this is your time. You have to know and you have to experience these life lessons.
Very true.
Or because that's what's going to help you prioritize and solidify your values and to contribute and to help people and to be kinder to yourself. All these negative things that happen to us allow us to look back and say, you know what, if it hadn't been for that, it helps us move forward. There are some horrific things. Yes, but there are some horrific things that happen. And
Good point.
Again, it's about whether they're horrific or minor. Like to us, struggling to turn off your social media is really so low on my radar of problems. But I appreciate that this may be a high priority for somebody else. So, you've got to stop looking at yourself as a victim and start going, you know what, I am empowered. I can do this. Am I choosing? And if you do choose to allow this to rule your life, that's your choice.
Yes.
Just don't complain about it. If you don't, then that is where, the magic will happen of putting things in place so it can go the way that you desire it to.
Right. And I think that's one of the reasons I asked you, was it adults who are putting this out there? Because in my biased viewpoint, I will call it out, I would hope that the more adult, mature audience would have learned some of these self-control
from where
methods through life experiences and understanding how they work and the consequences of some choices that they've done in the past. Can we, as adults, isn't that learning?
You're 100% right. But the problem I'm seeing is that people don't know what that is. We don't think through problem solving and consequences ever in our lives. It just happens. So how can I see that and come to that understanding if I have no awareness of it ever? Like, I've never been exposed to that. Nobody's told me that the fact that I spent 2 years sitting on my rear end and eating cake every day is the reason that I'm now 50 pounds overweight.
Oh my God.
And usually it's a product of the environment.
Yes.
So
100%.
if you are surrounded by people, and this is why, where people will categorize certain groups, I have a little struggle with that because I'm thinking we are a product of our environment.
I totally agree.
It takes an incident to jolt you out of that and go, you know what, I don't want to be here. This isn't for me. But what would jolt me out of it may not jolt you out of it.
Good point.
We have to be very careful. Look, guys, I'm so sorry. We've got literally 1 minute and 26 seconds left. This
rabbit hole's deeper than we knew.
Yeah, very fascinating topic. Thank you.
100%.
Yes, we could talk forever.
Thank you so much, guys. We didn't even get to give the tips, but I think basically we can quickly, one tip, go round. Maxine, one tip.
Oh gosh, I loved what we talked about. Check your intentions. When you actually pick up a phone or you're going to decide you're going to spend any time on any social media, how long is it going to be? And what's my intent right now? Is this just, what's it serving? That's it.
That was exactly going to be mine. How is this serving me? Ask yourself the question. You don't have to necessarily know where you're going, but ask yourself, how is this serving me? What's my outcome?
Yep.
Brilliant. And my one is that you are not a slave to your phone, to social media, to the press, to what have you. You have the power and you can actually make that decision, turn it off, have a conversation, get outside, have a barbie or what have you, barbecue, and enjoy people. That is a really good way to get yourself away from screens. So yeah. Anyway, ladies, thank you so very much. And thank you to everybody who is watching. If you've got any comments, please put them in the comment section. Maxine and Liz, if you think of anything else, like it does when we finish, pop it in, and people can answer your questions. So on that note, thank you very much, everyone, and have a great evening.
Thank you.